And joining us today are National Guardian Life AVP of Marketing and Inclusion Experience, Dwayne Maddox, and the hip hop architect himself, Mr. Michael Ford. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Good morning, Rob.
Hey, good morning. Pretty good.
Good, good. What we're talking about today is a couple of things that National Guardian Life is doing for Black History Month specifically. The one thing that readers of Madison 365 might have seen this week is we have a three-part series sort of celebrating, highlighting some of the Black architects and designers in Wisconsin. Mike, you helped us kind of curate that list and get those people together. Why was it important to do that?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for highlighting the Black architects and designers here in the state. But it was important to do it because there is a lot of growth that's happening around the state of Wisconsin and also in the city of Madison. And one of the challenges that we face as Black architects is actually working on some of those projects because most people don't know that we exist. Or we are hidden within larger organizations. So that list is very critical for us. Again, thanks for doing it. Right now, there's a total of 10 architects, 10 Black architects who are residents of the state of Wisconsin, which make us 0.6%, like not even a full 1% of the architects in the state. So it was important to get that list out. But also to highlight some of the up and coming, architects of color here in the state as well.
That is a three-part series. We highlighted a couple each day, and that is all already published there at Madison365.org, and you can find that anytime you look, along with a couple photos and renderings of some of the projects those folks have worked on. Big projects that you will recognize. Dwayne, let's move on and talk about the maybe even the bigger news here is that National Guardian Life Insurance Company, you are renovating your headquarters, and you're literally carving in stone your commitment to diversity. Can you talk a little bit about this project and how it got started?
Certainly. So I started with NGL back in the summer of 2020, when for the most part, the country at large was having an awakening in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd. And when I joined the organization, there were already broader enterprise-wide conversations about DEI and what our approach would be. And so we took some time to be intentional and think about what we wanted our vision to be, what we wanted our impact to be in our building with our employees and also outside our building with our community at large. And so we were all working from home at that time while we were having these conversations on a parallel path. And there was the decision made to renovate our building. It was an older building. No one was going in the building, and it was an opportune time to conduct those renovations. And so at this time, we were trying to determine which organizations we wanted to work with because we felt like that was a way to make immediate impact while we mapped out a long-term vision was to support some organizations that were already doing great work in the areas that we wanted to support. And so Mike Ford and Hip Hop Architecture was one of those organizations that we decided to support. And so as we started to put together that relationship, that partnership, we were also finalizing details on the plans for renovation. And so one day in our conversation, we just started to discuss what would it look like if we brought Michael in. He's a trained, world-renowned, nationally renowned architect, and we're already having some conversations about how we partner with him. And it just seems like intuitive that we might extend that conversation into working with us on our renovation. And so through that conversation, we got to this point where we figured out a space that would make sense for Michael to own from a design standpoint to sort of bring his vision to life. Thematically, we had by that time established a vision for how we wanted to live out our values around DEI as an organization and what we wanted our approach and impact to be. And we were able to share that with Michael, and he was able to take that and really come up with an amazing design idea in terms of how he could craft a piece that would be impactful and meaningful and representative of our mission, vision, and values around DEI. And we were just blown away once we started to see the initial concepts.
Mike, tell us about that concept, because it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, so once I was approached with this project, I had a number of thoughts, and the one that kept rising to the top was, how could this piece become this catalyst for discussions about NGL's commitment to DEI? It's one thing to literally take a statement and place it on a wall, and you can read it word for word. But how can we make this a prompt for conversation? And with that idea, what I eventually moved towards was, again, using this process that Dwayne and his team has already supported through the Hip Hop Architecture Camp, which is, taking words, taking lyrics, and converting them into something that's not a sonic experience, but something visual. Like, how can you turn words into a visual? How can you touch words, touch letters, and not Braille, but something a little different, right? Something that is more abstract and visually appealing. Oftentimes joke that this is like a modern day hieroglyph, right? People are going to wonder, what does this say?
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at it. So as you're describing it, I'm just going to bring it up here, the image that we have, which is, this thing's huge. This is what's going to be like 20 feet tall, something like that.
Yes, 22 feet tall, 14 feet wide. It's made of granite, and I was saying, like, this reference to a modern day hieroglyphic where the NGL staff and family will know exactly what this piece is, what it stands for. But when visitors come in, my assumption is that there will be questions. What is it? And again, it gives NGL consistent opportunities to talk about their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Go ahead.
I was going to say that each of those, am I correct in that each of those little tiles that we just saw is basically a letter and a word of their DEI commitment statement? Is that right?
Yeah. So the project is called text tiles. So each part of this has converted into a tile. I wish I could say it's little tiles, but these things they're massive.
They're big tiles.
They're big tiles.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about the 3-dimensional aspect of this?
Yeah. So another thing that we do, which started with the Hip Hop Architecture Camp, when we evaluate lyrics and turn them into something physical, we identify like action words or powerful statements within those lyrics. We also do things like counting syllables in words, and that's what gives us this 3-dimensional height. So words that are larger might start to pull from the surface a little bit more. So we went through that same process with evaluating NGL statement for power words, and as those words pull from the wall, there'll be a lighting element that is below those words. So NGL will be able to display this wall at different times during holidays, during special events. Like, this wall will be able to be modified by the lights that are embedded within the design.
So this is not going to be a flat mural like you maybe would expect, but it's going to have like texture to it.
It will definitely have some 3D relief to
That's
it.
awesome.
And again, the thing that is the most powerful thing to me about this wall, and Dwayne and his team's commitment to working with a Black architect, it's the fact that this is almost, it's showing the design approaches that we are missing by not having as many Black architects work on projects. We're experiencing space and place through the imagination of people who don't look like us, right? Their memories, their thoughts, their histories are being projected into space. What this project does is it brings my history our history, things that I've learned. So looking at Egyptians and like that classical architecture, and bringing that into our spaces and places is something that we all as people just have not experienced because of the low number of Black architects.
Right. I find that people often, and this is frankly something that I kind of learned from you, Mike, going back to the early days of the hip hop architecture camp, in that people don't think enough about the built environment that they live in. Like somebody consciously created those buildings that you walk through every day, those spaces, and have that only built by white people. We're just missing something, right? So, Dwayne, talk a little bit about, you kind of said, okay, Mike, do your thing. And he goes back with this. What's the reaction among NGL staff?
So this was an iterative process. So the first go around did not come back with this.
Okay.
I believe I'm a pseudo architect student at this point after our process over the past year. We went through a lot of different iterations. We tackled different design specs. We had to understand different weight considerations in terms of what type of stone could be used, what type of stone, design would have to be put in place to bring down weight, how those things would be held together so that wall doesn't fall down. We got really sort of into the weeds and down the rabbit hole on this project. So I would say that folks were extremely curious and really interested in the design process. In terms of the actual versions that Mike was presenting to us, again, each one of those were amazing in their own ways. And some of the ones that we liked up front needed some adjustment because of like weight issues or other spatial or design or technical building issues. And so I would say that we really had to engage in the creative journey with Michael because of these slight adjustments that would have to be made to make sure this wall stood the test of time and didn't have any issues sort of logistically or in terms of weight or height or that sort of thing. So the overall reaction was just fascination with the process, and then really just enthusiasm and amazement with each different iteration that Michael would come back with. And it's funny enough that this correlates to music and sound in the way this design work is done. And it reminds me of a musical process where someone sings the song one way one time, you're like, that was amazing. Then they come back and hit that note a different way. You're like, oh my goodness, that was even more amazing. And so Michael just kept hitting that note with the designs and kept elevating the level of expertise and elevating the outcomes of each design as we went step by step through the process. So it was just exciting and fascinating all the way through.
And you're, where is your headquarters?
We're at 2 East Gilman.
Right downtown Madison.
Yep.
And let's also just briefly shout out that you're using a Madison-based company to actually build this thing.
Correct.
Right, Quora Stone out on the east side there.
Correct.
With stone coming in from Spain, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a big deal, and you're literally, like I said, setting your commitment in stone, which is quite remarkable. Now, what the statement actually says, but and Michael knows obviously, but you're gonna reveal that at the unveiling of this wall.
Yes,
which is
absolutely
going to be in June or so. Is that right?
Yep. We don't want to commit to an exact month at this point, but spring. It's going to be in the spring, and we'll update timing as we get closer.
All right.
As anyone knows who has built anything, you have to leave yourself some room. In the schedule for things to take their natural course. So we will update the exact date and timing as we get closer.
And last question here, Mike. What does it mean to you as a Black architect to have this company, this big national life insurance financial institution, making this kind of commitment not only to Black lives but to Black architecture and to your organization? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for National Guardian Life to take this step, it means a couple of things. One, it provides a learning opportunity for everyone across the state and in the city of Madison as well, who are working on projects on what it means to work with a Black architect. Dwayne could have easily, or NGO team could have easily went to the team that they were already working with and said, hey, is there a Black person who works at this firm who we can work with? Instead, it's like, hey, who's a Black-owned company? Which, many architects, Black architects in the state, they don't branch off and go by themselves because of that fear of being able to get their own commissions and their own projects, which allow you to grow your firm.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we see projects that are happening around the country or even here where it appears to be a Black architect working on it, but the name that will go down on that project will not be the Black staff member who works at a majority-owned firm. So this provides an opportunity for myself and the National Organization of Minority Architects to actually have those discussions about what it means to work with a Black architect. Many projects I've done it before, like the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC, made a huge national statement by saying, here is a project that is centered on Black bodies. We're going to make sure that we hire a Black firm to do the work. So that's one thing. But then the second thing is the artistic freedom that they allowed me to bring to the project, which is another challenge. Sometimes you have to suppress your culture, your creativity when you're working on projects and just deliver a client's vision. It was great to be able to bring the culture, bring my design sensitivities to this project, and through some push and pull, some give and take here and there, to land at what I think will be a pretty instrumental project for NGL, but also for me to be able to show young people that you don't have to check your culture at the door when you are looking to create or looking to become an architect.
That is really, really so important. So once again, there's we've got an article with some photos at Madison365.org right now, all about this project, and we will definitely be there for the unveiling. And we appreciate your time today, gentlemen. Michael Ford, the hip hop architect, and Dwayne Maddox from National Guardian Life Insurance Company. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.